Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order, it being 7:00. Quorum is present, the meeting is duly constituted. First order of business is adoption of the agenda. Can I have a motion? And a second? Any ads? I'm only looking at Peter.
No?
That's a first, thanks. That's great. Ron?
With Pam's blessing, if we could add 8A2 2018 budget and LBFR financial reporting.
2018 budget and fire reporting. Okay. Anything else? Seeing none. All in favor as amended and opposed, that carries. Public participation. Tony, I'm assuming that you wish to participate publicly.
Publicly.
2 minutes on any topic that pleases you.
I'm talking on the Historical Society now. Little history. We've published 2 booklets over the years, and each time we've had a good bill, $2,000 or $3,000 each, and we've paid it off by selling the booklets. Any excess money after the bills have been paid off, we've given back to the village. We've supplied the bronze plaques each end of the Centennial Trail, put into rock with glue and screws, etc., because they can't be pried out. We've also placed a bench in Wade Park, which we look after every year with urethane. And last spring I came and spoke to you about the bus stop here, where people seem to be standing around waiting for the bus, no place to sit. And at that time, Transit mentioned were thinking of putting their own seat in, and I don't know the ins and outs of how things are done, but it hasn't happened. So at our recent meeting, somebody said, well, why don't we put a bench there anyway, and then if Transit come along later, put their bus, their seat in, then there's many places around the village where we can put our bench. So my proposal is that we go ahead and present a seat for people waiting for the bus, and it may require an hour of somebody's time in the works department to make sure it's flat. So that is my proposition to you.
I know what he's going to say, but I'll let him say it. Go ahead.
The Public Works Manager and myself will be meeting with somebody on Thursday, who's a technician who's coming out to examine our area out front and determine exact placement of the bus stop, whether it's where it currently is or whether it moves, as well as scoping out where a shelter will go. And we're working with TransLink and the associated companies that provide those shelter services, trying to get it in before year end to take advantage of funding.
Well, that'd be perfect.
Yeah, so the timing is exquisite. How these things work is they take a long time,
Yes.
as we all are discovering. So I don't want to lose the opportunity for the bench, though. And you also mentioned a booklet. That's the History of Lions Bay booklet, right? Do you have any plans on an update there, or an expansion?
Well, we have to discuss that. It's really not that far out, because the history doesn't change.
Yeah.
It's just maybe a council, that's about it, and some new people of the year, etc. But we'll discuss that in our next... See, the problem is, we produce another booklet, and it's not that changed from the one we have. We've got to sell an awful lot to pay for the printing.
Yeah.
And that's the problem there.
Okay, well, that's understandable. So as far as the bench goes, I would suggest that the bus stop location that you've proposed is underway, finally.
Okay.
Somewhat as a result of the initial catalyst that you put into play, actually. Where else could...
Well, there are many places around here. There's a widening just outside here of the pathway, which would be a nice place to have a bench. And we can look around and come back and suggest to you where we think it should go.
That'd be great. Peter's already got an idea. No? No? Okay.
One more thing, as they say. There are people who want to get a book out of the West Van Library, and it costs them $50 because we're not associated with them. And I'm just wondering, I believe once before we were associated with the West Van Library, and is it possible that we could negotiate that again for the village so that people can go in and take our books?
Yeah, that comes and goes, doesn't it? And it is currently gone, yeah. But
You can't get a West Van library card unless you live in West Van?
It's $50.
yeah,
Yep.
they make us pay. Well, sometimes, some years they make us pay and others not. I will ask,
Yeah,
because we're incremental to them. You know, we don't cost them any extra money.
exactly, yeah. And the same thing might apply to the rec centre in West Van. I don't know if we have any arrangement with them. But
Yeah, that I
a lot
can
of
see that, you know, we're taking up space and we're using their water and so on. There I can see that they may want to charge, but
Yeah, but those are the two things I appreciate you looking into.
I'll ask on both of them.
Mhm.
I certainly, I pay the full family whack for both of them, so I know. Okay,
Good, well, thank you very much.
thanks Tony.
Thank you.
Thanks as always. So we'll move on to public delegations. There are none, so it's review of prime minutes. Any issues with the minutes? I had some matters arising, but not issues. Except one, Peter. Under 15 on the reporting out from the closed portion of the meeting. It says none, but what I think I'd prefer it to say is matters were discussed pertaining to the reasons for closing the meeting, which was actually the reporting out. I don't even necessarily suggest we need to change it this time around, but for future. Just to add a modicum of transparency, not much, but some. So I'm not, unless anybody else feels strongly about it, we can let that one go for now, but next time let's have it. Okay, so no changes. Motion to approve and second. Any further? All in favour? Opposed? And that carries. Business arising. I'll kick it off. I have one or two matters arising. Just checking in. Peter, what's the status of the letter to the DFO on the Glass Sponge Reef endorsement? Okay, it's gone. That's great. Thank you. And the other one I saw was addressed later, so I don't need anything on that. Anything else? Last chance. So we'll move on to unfinished business. And the first is on my plate, and that is correspondence on Salish Sea Heritage and House of Commons e-petition. I will undertake to get that done by next meeting, I promise. Well, I'm thinking about promising. And item number 29 is done. I forwarded that to agenda for inclusion in the correspondence section. You got that? Thanks, sir. You can take that one off the follow-up actions. And we'll move on to CFO reports, starting with accounts
Do
payable.
you want to take 27 off and just do this on your own? I mean, there's...
No, it's probably just as well to have it there, to be honest.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm only human.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
And lazy. Okay, so no, let's leave it there. Thanks for the offer.
I wouldn't say lazy, I'd say busy.
Yeah.
Oh, well, yeah, that's
Lazy,
one man's laziness is another man's something. So we'll move to Pam's report to be less formal. So we've got everything there, Pam. At the outset, is there anything here that you should flag to us?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there was the large school tax payment, because this covers the quarter from July to September. The remittances, the tax collection remittances were in here. But other than that, it's 3 months, so you'll see a repeat, like it's in on date order, so you'll see a lot of the expenses in 3 times, like our regular recurring expenses every month.
Yep.
So it's all payments, electronic and checks, with the exclusion of payroll.
Okay, very good. Who's flagged what? Fred.
One of them was just a question. Periodically you've got an item and the amount paid, and then yes after it.
Yeah, that check was avoided. So basically, you'll see that under the invoice amount it's 0.
Mhm.
So the yeses are the void checks. So for whatever reason, if there was an error in the check, or we would just void the check and then generally reissue it.
That's just to maintain an audit sequence.
Yes,
So
exactly.
we know the numbers are
Because it's
sequential.
something actually the auditors will look at when they come in. You know, they tend to examine voided checks to see why they were voided.
Okay. Sorry. One other, just a bit of a query too. I see the amounts to Rescue Associates. Did he retire at September? Or-
Yes, August or September. I think his last payment might have been August.
August 31st,
August
I think.
31st. So we would have seen, this is July to September, so we would have seen the July and August payment in here.
Yeah, I flagged that as well. That's
Yeah.
okay. So that's
Yeah.
so we'll stop seeing those.
You'll just see the new
The-
ones
the-
doing
the new
training.
one,
Yes,
yeah,
the
yeah.
rescues, that was the last Rescue Associates.
That's it for me.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
The retirement gift for Alan,
Yeah, I saw
for
that. as well.
$145. Is this what we're talking about?
No, that's same person, but.
Okay, same person,
He's-
sorry.
You're talking about his monthly fee.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anything else? Ron?
No,
No?
looks like
Jim?
every line of government got paid over the quarter.
Yes. Well, that's what happens in the
Yeah.
third quarter, I guess. Just a few
I
for
had
me.
nothing jump out at me at all when I looked at it, so.
The advertising procedure bylaw. We advertise the procedure bylaw, or is that a typo? That was for Peak Magazine. Not a lot of money.
Oh, no, you have to.
For procedure bylaw, it has to go to.
Yeah, when you do an amendment, you have to advertise it.
Fine. Okay.
So we've been advertising in the peak here.
Wi-Fi for the hall, $1,579. Was that a setup charge, or that's not what Wi-Fi in the hall costs, does it?
That was, we had the extra money, we had money left over from
Yeah.
the television, so we.
That must have been for the
Wi-Fi.
modem and the.
Yes,
and the,
exactly, and it was to improve.
Because I saw there was
no
a subsequent
coverage.
one that was much lower.
Yes.
So that was set up. Okay,
Yes.
that's fine. SCADA Tech Connect, $1,800. This is more for NI. I'm not aware of anything that we're supposed
Sorry,
to be.
where are you looking?
It's
Which
check
page?
number 24749 on page 13, fourth from the top.
Who is the,
Westburn Electric Supply.
this one, okay.
I wasn't aware that we'd budgeted any SCADA work.
Like, we have ongoing SCADA, so I can find out
Uh,
what that is.
It was more for NI. I'll mention it next time I see him, so don't worry. Burn Building Electrical Supplies, $1,400. Is that in
Yes.
That's midway down page 14.
Yeah, they got approval to do that. I mean, there is still the stop work order, but NI was able to get some coverage for the sort of some fill for the area around the burn building, like all of the pit. And they knew they had to do trenches to the electrical work, and they didn't want to have to dig it up, so they basically did some trenches, laid some electrical in preparation for the burn building, so that once they put this fill that NI had, I believe, got from West Vancouver, they wouldn't have to dig it up again.
Okay,
So we discussed that ahead of time. and
so the
that
stop
was-
order is still in place, but soon to come off, as I
Yes.
understand. Okay, good.
So,
Okay, that's you read my mind. That's what I wanted to know. Don't worry about that one. On page 19, near the bottom, a chlorine analyzer, $12,000 even.
yes, that was a capital purchase. That was the chlorine analyzer and the turbidity monitor, which were in the budget for
Yeah.
water.
For exactly
That was purchased.
12,000 and no pennies.
Yes, I mean, there would have been tax on that, but we get the tax back, so
Yeah.
this is the amount net of tax.
This is net of tax, yeah.
Well, actually, net of GST, not PST. So, yep, so
Yep.
12,000 even.
Okay. And I don't suppose you know what, just up there, solenoid repairs, $4,200. What solenoid for what? It's a pump solutions company. I'll ask now.
Intakes, okay, I'll give you a heads up.
Okay, anything else? So a motion to receive the report and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Pam. It's actually quite useful. And actually, you can see a sort of a trend going through as well. So it's
We basically do checks every 2 weeks, and we have a lot of monthly expenses. So this, you'll see July, August, and September. So as you go through it, you do.
I do see the
it does
the
repeat-
pattern, yeah.
Repeat itself.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the the item added in approval of the or adoption of the agenda. Sorry, 2018 budget and fire department reporting.
Councillor McLaughlin had asked me to speak to this. So in terms of the schedule, And essentially, we discussed this, I guess, at the strategic plan as well as when I first introduced it. So this proposal I have for the budget, it does have the first and second reading, as I said, 4 weeks earlier than last year. And to me, this is, it's mapped out with a certain amount of budget presentations to council to discuss budget, and if that goes quicker than possible, to me, this would be the latest date we would have first and second reading, and it could potentially be earlier. It starts with the preliminary budget to council on January 9th, and then we'll do the water and sewer and solid waste quite quickly because that has to be adopted so we can get the utility rates out. So I have scheduled quite a few less meetings than last year, and it just depends, I guess, on how quickly we can agree how to, council can agree what to spend, kind of the extra on, what capital projects we will do. And as soon as that's done, I'll do the 5-year plan, and so we're not locked into this. I mean, obviously, if we're ready earlier, we'll just go to first and second reading earlier.
Well, a lot of it depends on finalization of the strategic plan as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I actually had it down here, but I'll just interject now. Peter, where do we stand on seeing the first draft of that from Alison?
I got a draft from her and was working on it last night. I passed it around to Pam and I for comments, and then I'll send that back to her for changes, and she'll send me something back, at which point we'll be in a position to bring it to council.
Okay, she's going to provide it to us in soft so that we can actually take ownership and edit it as well, right? She's not producing the one that's cast in stone.
Well, it'll come to council. If council wants to make changes, then you can do so. But I don't want to get four or five different versions in Word with comments and edits all over it. So if council has changes, then we can discuss that at December 19th meeting.
Well, yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I certainly think we have a better sense of what Lions Bay is talking about than a consultant who flies in and flies out again. But
that was a facilitated session. The facilitator will produce the outcome from what she had on the boards and stuff like that.
And she recorded it all.
It's all recorded. So at that point in time, I don't see why we would be critiquing it until such time as we've got a proper draft.
Yeah. I didn't have a lot of edits and comments to it last night, just a few questions for Pam and I, and then, so I expect it's going to go pretty smooth. I'll forward it to you guys ahead of time, and if you have comments, please.
Ultimately we're going to end up with a poster like that, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure if we'll.
Or maybe it won't look like that, it'll be more tabular than...
She did mention making a stab at something like that, so...
Okay, well, it's been a while now, over a month, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we get. And
it hasn't been over a month, it's been 3 weeks.
Has it?
Yeah.
Time flies.
Can't have been a month, I wouldn't have been back 3 weeks.
Okay, good, so I'm very much looking forward to seeing that. So that will certainly come to next meeting.
Ooh,
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay, Pam, so I interrupted there. So
Yeah.
we would have seen something by this time last year, right? A sort of a preliminary look.
We had discussed that. We got a very, very preliminary look, and I felt it would actually be more efficient to give you less than a preliminary look, or more than a preliminary
More
look,
than-
I guess I was going to say.
Yeah.
First
A
week
more
of
photograph
January.
look.
Very much so, yeah.
Because there's so much work we can do ahead of time, like the labor model and things like that are kind of are what they are.
Yeah.
And then I'll give you a very robust budget with, the operating pretty much nailed down. And then we can just devote our time to the capital and
It's already better.
supplementals. So I think it'll be...
We're not spinning our wheels. And has it saved you any time to not do that?
Well, I'm just
interim?
really starting now, but I think it will.
Okay.
I'm working with Nye and Haley, and January 9th we'll have the preliminary, and then the water, sewer, and solid waste will be will be a lot more than preliminary because we really only have one more meeting to review it and discuss it, and then we have to start doing the readings in order to get the utility bills out.
Okay.
And in terms of the fire reporting, I know we've talked about the balance sheet. I can't really do a balance sheet either for fire or for public works, but I can show you the capital, which I have, and then we're thinking at year end I can just do a complete cost summary of it, because I generally do what I call the fourth quarter review. I know we have the financial statements, but the fourth quarter, I did it last year as well, reviewing the results, just like the third quarter review, just against a budget, and I can do a full do any additional fire reporting that you would like. And again, we'll have all the asset purchases by then. And we can look at the assets and the depreciation and
Yeah, I mean, I think that's,
allocating the cost of the CLAT building now to the different areas, ambulance and
which is also good. I mean, I think what I have no idea what has been invested in the fire department over time, nor how much it's been depreciated, and where we stand in terms of investment overhang or investment shortfall. I don't know what the fire trucks. I don't know anything about fire department assets.
And that's the asset management plan. I mean, that'll be
Yeah.
a key part of it. Is
And we invest a lot, right? I mean, the fire department operating cost is $440 a year, but I don't want to even take a stab at what we invest because I've never seen it. I've never seen even a pro forma, let alone sort of an itemized balance sheet.
Fire
But even
department, the fire department's a major part of Lions Bay. A major part of the safety around Lions Bay is the fire department. So yes, Carl's point is that it's nice to know exactly,
Yeah,
you know,
no,
exactly
exactly.
what it
Yeah.
looks like and where. It would be nice to have a historical, because I've often thought that it'd be nice to know, Fred, you probably have it in your head, but historically, I have no idea, you know, what we've spent, what we've done, anything. So it's like a big,
So the asset plan using, again, to what the theme here, Pam, is, I mean, I have no, and Fred would probably know whether, you know, pick either of the trucks, is there a lifespan of another 10 years or 2 years or 20 years, I don't know. And should we be thinking about that too, which probably just, you know, off the cost, which is an old number because it's some years now. And it's probably a fairly rapid depreciation, but I mean, I'd be very interested in the replacement, anticipated replacement, and I don't even want to think about the cost.
yeah, I mean that's going to be hard to put in. That's not really a balance sheet item. That's a fire services plan item, but we don't have that. So I mean,
Well, it's
somebody in the future is going to have to face buying $1 million fire
well,
truck.
it's, yeah, but I guess that asset management plan is a bigger piece to this than kind of a
it is. I mean, we can
in-house
definitely
financial
have a
statement.
conversation,
Okay.
which I have with the fire chief about the useful lives of the trucks. But you know, true asset management plan will assess it and determine how much.
And where do
life
we
is
stand
left.
with that, Pam?
We're working on the grant applications, and I'll be putting an RFP out for the asset management plan. And the idea is to go for the 50% grant on that. We've had a quote of 30,000, so it would be 15,000 our cost. And then, in addition, going for an infrastructure master planning grant they're due in January. So I'm working on that application as well.
Oh, an IPG.
Yeah, IFG as well.
And do you have to wait for the whole asset management plan to be finished before it starts being useful, or does it start bearing fruit quite quickly?
Well, they do it over about a 3-month period, so
That's
I
pretty quick,
did,
yeah.
yeah, like basically it doesn't bear fruit, so to speak, until it's done, but the whole idea is they do it fairly quickly. And then, so next year, in 2018, we'll have an asset management plan.
So you're thinking
That
what,
can tell
by
us.
sort of summerish?
Yeah, exactly.
But it'll be, you know, sort of a plan, but one that will require us to build on it
Yeah.
every year
That's where I'm
It's-
going more.
to flesh it out.
So this will be the framework that will give us something
Exactly.
useful.
Yeah, it's the framework, and it basically will tell us the good news, probably bad news. It's sort of almost our starting point. And then the hard decisions have to be made. What's the priority? What we're going to fund? And then at that point, we would get apply for the FCM grant. And that was the recommendation is, you'll see from your asset management plan where the really key areas are, and then we'll target a higher value FCM grant to cover some of that.
and if it's done properly, it will be a solid foundation for the asset management to grow. And
Exactly.
give
Yeah,
us
it
some
becomes a
basis.
Bible, much like the
That's
infrastructure
right.
master plan is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
we'll incorporate that. I mean, we've got some really good information from the infrastructure master plan, but it'll identify the gaps. It'll say there's certain things, maybe like fire trucks in some of our buildings, where we need to actually get an assessment, and that's what we could use the grant fund to determine exactly how much life is left.
It should be able to stop the oh my God factor, we have to do this, we have to do that, and that's what every single council for a long time has had to deal with. If we had that in place, yeah,
Yeah, no, exactly.
Then you know how badly you're in trouble.
exactly.
You don't fund it out the hard way.
That's right.
Okay.
Just a comment, just not to be a teaser on what's coming, but you asked about fire trucks. The recommended lifespan of a fire truck is 15 years, but most departments stretch it to about 20. The newest vehicle we have is about 10 years old. The second vehicle was used from New York, so I don't know what the age of it is, so it's not going to be around too much longer. So they are looming, you know. And then there's things like their air compressor for their SC or their air
Escape
SCBA.
packs, yeah.
That came in about 12 years ago, so it's good quality and stuff. It should last, but all those big ticket items are going to be coming pretty soon.
That's my sense of it, and it's starting to worry me because we don't know. Therefore, we're not planning for it. Now, I know some of that is grant covered, but 50% grant if we're lucky, and the rest we're going to have to stump up. So, I mean, forewarned, forearmed, to quote Jim, although he didn't actually say that in so many words. So, we're making progress towards that goal. So that's good. Is that what you had in mind, Ron?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, and that means I can. That. One more request for a report. A report on when we will get the report is the parking report, the 2017 parking report. Do you have a date on that?
I don't see that on the agenda here.
I'm asking.
Just kidding.
I'm not asking for the report. I'm asking for when.
Yeah, I expect to have it at the next meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks. That's great. Okay. There's no mayor's report, and we'll move on.
Do you want to pass a motion just to receive the
Yeah.
verbal update or verbal report?
Yeah, a motion to receive the verbal update on budget and fire department. Thanks. And second, any further discussion? All in favour on receipt and opposed? That carries. And then we'll go to council. One item, Fred. Shoot.
Yeah, I imagine you've all read this, what it's produced and everything. I think it's self-explanatory, unless you want to have any questions about it. I gave a brief background as to how it came about. And I think it was because it was an infrastructure committee member, they had insight into a flat piece of land that was going to soon be becoming available, which is the burying of the highway water tank. And so the idea was to make that the memorial or a cenotaph site or whatever. It would certainly be a lot nicer to look at than some big green tank that we've had many complaints about. But more importantly, I think there's a lot of appetite for this in amongst the number of villagers that I've spoken to. So I bring it forward to for your consideration to see if we should go ahead on this, or if we for option 1 down below, I'd be happy to organize the thing, and you know, if we had a select committee, was it? Select committee. Be happy to try and put something together and bring a recommendation of members to it back to council, and flexible just wherever you want to go with it, or if you don't want to go with it, you can see.
Just a little bit of a curveball today from Modi on land ownership of the site where the highway tank is located. Little bit up in the air. We think it's on our right of way, highway right of way. They seem to think it's on theirs. So that could affect something like this, as well as, not to mention, permitting being required for our works. But that's just another thing to take into consideration before we get going too full steamish on this idea, which I think is a great idea, but just wanted to let you know. need to square that one first.
Okay, well, I suspect there's many ways to skin that cat. Although, what's it called when something's grandfathered? Surely we have squatters' rights by now.
Yeah, it was there before the highway was.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could see. I mean, certainly the reservation map that they provide us has boundaries close to that. Well, anyway, that's something you can worry about later. Yeah, I think that's great. Thanks, Fred. So you would volunteer to chair a committee. So what we would need to do is nominate members. That would be an item for closed, and set terms of reference in terms of budget, location, which would need to be flexible, design, content. The thing that concerns me, and I've mentioned this to you already, is what exactly do you put on this memorial? I mean, it's not names, because we don't have anybody who's died in a war. We have some veterans who've lived in a war. At some point they will pass away. They may not even be Lions Bay residents at the time. Who knows? what wars. Lions Bay's only been around since '71. We haven't fought any particular wars since then. Maybe Vietnam. There wasn't a Canadian declared war. So the question is, what's on it? It could be just all the official battles and wars that Canada's ever fought since Confederation or something. I don't know.
Whistler just went through a process whereby they moved their cenotaph and took into consideration a lot of different things. There was a letter to the editor saying they missed some more, and the response back that you're bitching about little stuff that's like we did all this work and all you're doing is criticizing. But anyways, there was a lot of people spent a lot of time working on it, and so we might be able to get some ideas and input from what they've done.
That's always my concern, is you leave people out if it's names. And there's people in Lions Bay who've never put their hand up who are veterans, certainly. Obviously didn't die in a war because they're still here. But then, it's how serious does the war need to have been to get your name on? Is it a declared war? Is it a skirmish? Is it Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or is it ambulance services, search and rescue, and fire? I don't know.
But it doesn't necessarily have to be a memorial to residents who died in the war. It's a memorial to support the veterans who fought the wars. Simple as that. I've been to lots of war memorials, and most recently in Australia, and a lot of them have nothing to do with the area at all. It's a war memorial for soldiers that were killed, thousands of soldiers that were killed in the battles, and so it doesn't have to be just for local heroes.
Yeah, it's not a memorial. It is a cenotaph. So this would have to all be considered by the committee.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much what I was thinking, is assemble a group and have a sort of an exploratory of ideas, like what would the people want?
Before we even put some terms of reference together.
Possibly. I'm not sure. I don't have anything set in stone in my mind as far as what it should look like, but I guess I'm sort of motivated when I see an amount of energy and enthusiasm in residents that want to move in a direction here. It would be nice to sort of harness all that and just see where it goes with a bit of oversight from council.
Well, now's a good time for it because next year is the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, which Canada obviously fought in. There's also work being done, so it's potentially, if they're going to be pouring bases and so on, they could pour a base or even potentially construct the whole thing because, they're going to have the machines down there doing the stuff. So time is of the essence. Why don't we discuss some names? We have a closed meeting coming up. Let's just add an agenda item to discuss some names in there,
Yeah,
and then maybe take it and run with it.
I can think of a few key people would be good to get going with, and then the group could increase as needed. So it could be phased in over a short period of time. But yeah, I'd be open to a closed session on it.
Okay, good. So the recommendation is that council consider a proposal to research turning this. Or let's just amend that to say inaugurating a Lions Bay memorial or cenotaph to honor our veterans of war.
I would say cenotaph. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make that motion. Can I have a second? Fred, you'll second that.
Yep.
Or any further discussion on that one?
I worry, while this is a good cause, and Fred, if you, all respect to the veterans, all respect to your time, but, to gather committee members, to get terms of reference, it's Christmas, you're not really gonna be operational till January. There's lots of things going on. Just looking at the minutes of your committee and my committee that we're both doing, it's a lot of work. And you're kind of working a bit of a vacuum. We really don't even know whether villagers want that there, or somebody else would want that primary piece of property that's the highest visibility in the village. For I don't know what. But we're kind of plowing along here with a good cause. And I'm in a bit of a quandary on two pieces. One, no budget, although you can notionally pick a number. That's not the deal breaker. But it's the time, the effort, and will it please everybody? Because it seems like there's going to be some artistry to it, and when there's art involved, people like it or they don't like it. And so a whole bunch of stuff. So actually, my voice on this is that it's, 4 months from now when the group comes forward with whatever report or stuff like that, you may be thinking sooner, will we be able to execute it in this term?
Mhm.
And so that's my caution, and there seems to be a real passion for this at the moment because we're just past Remembrance Day. Will this be the same passion come February? I don't know.
Can't answer.
And so,
So the recommend.
We all know what the strategy section looked like, and I'd be very loath to have staff do very much of anything on this one.
Right.
Yeah, staff is already oversubscribed.
Just hard no.
So I think what the recommendation, the motion is to refer this to a closed meeting to consider a committee, and we can debate further whether we actually want to do that, select committee, and what its scope might be. So let's treat it as sort of a two-step process. So this is the first step to take it to closed, because we're going to be debating appointing people to a committee, hence it needs to be closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll call the question on that one. All in favour?
Fine.
Fine. And opposed? There being none, that carries. And so we'll resume this discussion in just a little while. Thank you, Fred. Then we have two committee meeting minutes. The first is the Beach Park Advisory Committee. I don't think we need to go through them, but anything you want to pull out there, Ron?
You're one of the monkeys. How many people have tapped the survey?
51 as of about an hour ago. It's not bad, given that it's only been advertised one poster in the post office.
It's a long weekend, that's fine.
Yeah.
Good.
So, we would need probably 4 or 5 times that. I would suggest that you need to talk to some of your other committee members and say, where's the posters around town, or the flyers, or maybe we do a special something, I don't know.
I will do this about that. We're certainly all in the midst of Christmas parties in the season, both primarily in the village for many, that our members make sure that everybody within their group is filling in the form.
Yeah, 51's already pretty good, and I have actually read them already. The results are not what you wouldn't expect. They're pretty much as you would expect. The comments are always the interesting things, and some of the comments are interesting. For example, I've been quite surprised to find that of the people who filled in the survey, the vast majority don't use the play structures. Presumably people are speaking for their kids when they do.
Mm.
But mostly it seems to be middle-aged and older Lions Bay residents, although we have actually got a slew of responses from non-Lions Bay residents, but it seems to be the local scuba diving club, because they've mistaken Lions Bay Beach for Kelvin Grove Beach, clearly, based on the comments.
Okay, well,
So we'll have to just exclude that. But
so if you're writing this Friday, you'll pitch it again.
I'll do it again, of course.
I'll email all the other members, and I'll use that piece of correspondence that came in as lead on
they should privately encourage on to their email address lists, yeah. It certainly goes out in the e-post, obviously. We have 2 more opportunities, this Friday and next Friday. It closes at...
15th, but we can drag that to the...
I can change the deadline technically, yeah. Can't change the wording because, it's now been responded to.
Literally, sorry, members here. Just give a 2 for 1 out of the committee meetings here. If response from what your observation is keeps dribbling in daily, I'd rather hold off for another 4 or 5 days and have another 20 or 30 people dribble in.
Absolutely, yeah.
So let's cover that when we meet next in 2 weeks.
Good. Okay, so a motion to receive the minutes for information, thanks, and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And then same again for the IC meeting minutes of the 27th. Fred? What do we need to know about this?
Well, first of all, I didn't put it on when I submitted it, but these are the draft minutes. They haven't been yet approved by the IC.
Yeah, this was very recent, actually.
Last Monday.
Okay.
Is there any questions on it? I think it's pretty well self-explanatory.
Just, if I may,
Sure.
we've got a resident contacting this Boydell, who I presume is a supplier.
A vendor, yeah.
He's a vendor.
Is that not odd?
Well, it's doubly odd because it was the resident who found the lead towards him, and he came in they came in to make a presentation of what we thought might be a great idea, and its time probably isn't right now. So we're going back through the chain of how we got to him, following it back through the resident.
He's a professional contact of this.
Okay, I mean, I'm just thinking if we phone the vendor, we get our wrist slapped. And
Yeah, no, this was a professional introduction
Okay.
Through the IC. Yes, but on a far less formal basis. So it was
good enough for me.
it was a fact finding, and the facts are that we don't need it just a moment. The other thing was just FYI that we might be able to repurpose the 2 big 10,000 gallon raw water tanks that we bought and haven't really used since 2014 as sort of sump tanks, surge tanks, to use compressed water to flush the intake grids. Nye is going to experiment with that one on a sort of very band-aid type of way to see if it's worth the trouble. Because right now, if the screens clog, they're using compressed air to kind of somehow blow out the clogging. Well, that doesn't work because that's not what backwashing is. So that was an interesting discussion. We went round and round on that one. I could see Fred glazing over afterwards. He said, enough already on the backwashing.
No, actually, not being a non-technical person in a technical committee, I find it fascinating. And sometimes something sounds kind of fishy to me, like, is this really going to work? And then to hear the chorus ring out around the table challenging an idea, it's like, yeah, thanks. I didn't know how to ask that question, but they answered it, or asked it pretty well.
Not a fluidized bed, it's a packed bed. I said that because I happen to know. Okay, good. Thanks, Fred. Motion to receive and a second. Any further discussion? All in favour and opposed? That carries. And there are no reports from emergency services, so we'll move on past resolutions to bylaws. The first is adoption of fire bylaw number 428, 2011, amendment bylaw number 535 of this year. And this is the adoption. Can I have a motion and a second? Any discussion? Peter, do you want to enter anything into consideration in terms of...
Maybe the only thing I'll say is that I did talk to the fire chief, and he was disappointed that council was electing to...
Okay, we come back out of... what's the term I used? Adjournment? Recess? We're unrecessed at 1943. So we were hearing from Peter on fire chief's reaction to council's deliberations.
Right, so, Chief Oliver was of the opinion that a 50% threshold takes into consideration more the safety perspective that he felt was important in terms of firefighters attending an incident. If the scene of the incident is sprinklered, they're going to be safer going into and attacking any fire at that location, as opposed to if it's not sprinklered. So that was an important consideration from his perspective. And
yeah, but I mean, the logic is, I don't think anybody around the table is arguing that sprinkling is a bad thing. The question is, how many more houses would be sprinklered at 50% than at 75% or renovation value over the next, say,
20 years?
20 years?
So you asked me that earlier, and my sort of back of napkin calculation after speaking with the building inspector was that probably over the course of 20 years we might see 20 structures roughly that might fall into that category of being within that 50 to 75, whereby there's been a fire, they burnt down, they weren't sprinklered, whereas they would have been if you went with 50.
Well, they're not all going to burn down, those 20. We have two fires a year, one fire a year, and so it's one chance in 500, one of them will burn down.
No, but it was based on more than one fire a year, I think the calculation was.
Okay, well,
but in any event,
let's not be having any more fires than we need
so
to.
if we're somewhere between 10 and 20, maybe even if it's 10, that would fall into that category.
So 10 divided by 500, that's 1/50th.
No.
Well,
not divided by anything. I'm just saying 10
Yeah.
structures
that may or may not
over
catch
20
fire.
years that burn down that aren't sprinklered,
No,
that would have been
Impossible.
within that range.
no. Well,
Yeah,
I asked
it's
for this
just-
report, and we're certainly not going to debate the merits of a report that we haven't seen. We also don't know what the cost implications are.
It wouldn't be a report, it's just pure conjecture based on a number of factors.
No,
So
I mean,
it was an
statistically-
estimate that was, as I said, back of napkins, so.
Okay, well, I mean, has anybody heard anything that would cause them to change, to rescind third reading, change the number from 50 to 75 to 50? So nobody wants to make a motion to reopen debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Do you have a motion on the table? We do. All in favour and opposed? That carries. And then we'll go for third reading. Oh, we did first and second last time. Yeah, okay, fine. What was the reason for that? Why didn't we do 3 readings?
Why did we do 2?
Yeah,
of three?
instead of 3. Was there some?
Because we had time and.
Oh, we had time.
and-
Not
and-
because you thought you might need to change something more.
We left a couple of things open, so if we quickly go through that.
Yeah.
I think the. Mm, 42 was already there. It's just the change to page 42 regarding temporary use permit was scratching out the R, so temporary use instead of temporary user. So, page.
These changes that we see here are from second reading to third reading, right?
No, so these are not all changes these were changes that were already there. I believe.
So far I see only
So the
2.
only thing I think that we've changed from second to third is if you go to page 64, we've taken out the, oh no, that was there already, sorry.
Page 12.
Page 49 of the actual
49.
bylaw, we've removed park rental fees.
49 of the bylaw.
You just passed it.
Right, so we've taken that off,
Yeah.
which also shows on page 68. Are there any other changes that,
I think that was it.
that's it?
Okay, good stuff. So who cares to make a motion on this guy? Thanks, and a second. So the motion is for third reading on, let's get to a title page here. Fees bylaw number 497 of 2016, amendment bylaw number 534 of 2017. There's a motion, seconded motion on the table. Discussion? I'll call the question. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. And on we go to correspondence. Ron, this seems to be your department.
Thank you. G1, which is the exterior UBCM convention, Carol James. She doesn't actually wish us well, but says it was a pleasure to meet some of the mayors, and I presume that was you, Carl.
Yeah, no commitments made.
Yeah,
What a surprise.
And anyhow, she appreciated us, which is you speaking to her on a variety of topics. No response. Unless you want to add any
No
more.
response.
I mean, it's clear what you talked about, and it's clear that she made no promises.
Now show us the money.
Yeah, it was pretty clear who was asking for what. Okay, going to G2, the passenger directed vehicle services, mayor response. Carl, that's you did, thank you very much.
Yeah, that was just to get it into the public domain here.
Okay, thank you very much, very detailed. So the next one, which would be the Translate Winter 2718 bus service changes. Let me get to the last sentence, that's G1.
None that affect us unless you go to SFU.
Bingo, thank you. The date for feedback is Thursday, so you can sorry, I've moved on to cannabis, which is a
Yeah,
far
that's
more
fine.
interesting topic than.
Yeah, so I asked for a report on or recommendation at least on this one. Do you have anything, Peter?
No, I'm sorry, I don't.
Anybody?
No.
We've got 2 days. Anybody care to opine on this? I certainly don't. No, just let it fly, let it slide.
And relative, I had reason because of what my wife's doing to look at the bus service, that there's changes pending, and it doesn't affect Lions Bay. Zero, even though there's some posting. in
Well,
Lions
not
Bay.
directly to Lions Bay, but as I say, I mean,
Yeah, so we're done.
our people use transit all over the region. But
Okay, so no response on that. The cannabis consultation, even better, it got till December the 7th on that one, and the last sentence really says it all. We've heard concerns from local municipalities about shouldering the burden of enforcement. Invite you to share your feedback. Me personally, haven't even got to the burden of enforcement because I'm struggling with the whole thing myself, let alone the expedited legislation to make it happen this coming July. So I don't think I would be the one that would be good to respond to her.
okay, I thought we talked about. I may have jumped the gun on this one. So we didn't get any recommendations from staff in this one, given the timelines. I think I speak for us all when we said another week. Anybody want to become an expert in cannabis in the next 2 days? Because that's the deadline. No, didn't think so.
Good, no
So
response.
no response?
Yep, thank you. The resident one, the Remembrance Day veterans, I think we've dealt with that.
Yep.
And Fred will leave you to deal with that.
Mm-hmm.
The encroachment agreement, which it looks like Peter's already responded.
Sorry, just on the previous one, is there any response to the resident?
I have already responded verbally and while hiking Trudy's Trail yesterday.
I can speak to him.
And once, I mean, maybe he may be an option.
I've exchanged emails with him, but
Without
I
naming
contact
names.
him for this, yeah.
Yeah, fine.
Let's double up then. Peter, the encroachment agreement, I see this is yours.
You responded to that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. And
Can you just bring your
anything-
response to put it into the agenda?
That's it, right here.
Yeah, so anything that comes from this resident
Okay.
further, it's yours.
Sorry, just like,
So, no response on that one, I'm here.
Oh, this is the response. Sorry, I meant,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, you're quite right. So it's,
Page 17.
We're done.
this is in and out.
Yep.
So I can actually scratch this comment right here. Thank you. Cheers, Ron. Motion to receive correspondence and a second. That's with no actions. All in favour? Opposed? That carries. So we'll move to closed council meeting. Can I have a motion to close under 91CE, 92B, and I think Peter has another reason.
91A,
A, which is A again?
discussion of,
The committees.
yeah.
Yep. Committee one. Okay, thanks. So as amended, all in favour? Opposed? That carries. Oh, did I get a motion on that one? I did, yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, returning from closed meeting at 2027, one item to report out is that Councillor Fred Bain will undertake to produce a recommendation for council on the advisability, budget, scope, design, timeline, and all other aspects of consideration of a remembrance memorial, veterans commemoration, likely to go somewhere within the village that we could use construction activity upcoming, possibly the location of the highway tank. Okay, there's a bit of a mealy-mouthed reporting up, but that was more or less what we discussed. Anything I should add to that? No? Okay.
And reporting back in 2 weeks, or?
Well,
Or,
I could do a preliminary in 2 weeks. If it takes longer, I can
Right,
report
yeah.
for it as well.
okay, with the goal for preliminary report next meeting. Okay, good. So that's that. We don't have to accept that report, right? That's just reporting out.
sorry, we,
Council doesn't have to endorse that report out.
We've acted on it by making,
But I mean, we're just doing that on the nod. Because we don't report out that often in so many words, so that's good enough.
Yep.
Okay, so with that, we reach motion for adjournment. And a second, all in favour? Opposed? That carries. Meeting adjourned at 20:28.